Your Worship, the Mayor of San Fernando, Alderman Junior Regrello, my cabinet colleagues at the head table, the Minister of Works and Transport, Senator Rohan Sinanan, and my other cabinet colleagues who are here in their numbers this morning, I think representing more of a constituent interest than a cabinet interest. I see here the Member of Parliament for Point Fortin, Minister of National Security, the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, Attorney General Farisal Rawi, Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Minister Randall Mitchell, former Mayor of San Fernando and now Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Senator Kazim Hussain, my colleague from Laventil East Mova, former Minister of Works, now Minister of Public Utilities, Minister Fitzgerald Hines, other members of the Cabinet, members of Parliament, members of Council of San Fernando and other cities and boroughs around. Also, I would like to acknowledge the chairman and members of the board of NIDCO and the staff of NIDCO who have been working assiduously under tremendous pressure from the cabinet to get this project going. And I see here in the audience, and I must acknowledge him, the Mayor of Point Fortin, Councillor Abdul Basin, other members of council from Point Fortin, members of the community of San Fernando, members of the Ministry of Works led by the Permanent Secretary, the members of staff of the Ministry of Works, members of the security services, members of the media, distinguished citizens of Trinidad and Tobago all. Thank you very much for coming out this morning in what is a very unusual development. For those of you who live in this area and those of you who have been following the promise and actions surrounding this effort to get a highway into Point Fortin, you might be asking, why are we turning the sod this morning? Because it will be the second time that the sod would be turned for this project. We don't normally do that. But on this occasion, symbolic and otherwise, it's important that we do it because it represents something that is important to all of us as a country. And permit me a moment of your attention to tell you why this morning is important. You see, it is very easy for us, those of us in the political arena, to be ridiculed and chastised by those who are not in the political arena and who are not charged with the responsibility of governance in this country. But I can point out to you that what this morning represents is a fundamental shift in the behavior of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. A couple nights ago, I was looking at a very prominent local speaker who indicated that what should be done in this country now is a reduction in expenditure and diversification of the economy. Very lofty ideals. But of course, the person who was talking about that was a union leader. And I know, as government, that as you reduce expenditure, it automatically impacts upon people because more often than not, that reduction in expenditure results in loss of jobs in some areas of the economy where that expenditure is reduced. So as you call for reduction of expenditure, that same voice very quickly talks about increase in persons in the breadline, not making any connection between both. And of course, the same voice says, diversify the economy. But as you talk about diversifying the economy, it means doing something else, selling something else, getting involved in something else other than what you've been involved in. And one of the things that we were about to be involved in this country was entry into the aluminium market. And we make the point again that aluminium is not oil, it is not gas, it's a different product whose consumption is growing in the international market because it's replacing steel in the construction of motor vehicles and many, many other products. We wanted to enter the aluminum market. At the time, the intention was to build a smelter in Trinidad and Tobago, and from that smelter to create aluminium ingots, and to drive an industry which would afford us to export certain aluminium products. I could tell you today without contradiction, had that project been completed, now that we are desperate for foreign exchange, that project, that industry would have been generating significant foreign exchange earnings to Trinidad and Tobago. But a government came into office with a change of policy and shut down the project. As I speak to you now, a minister of government of this administration is in China. And one of the issues that he's dealing with in China is the negotiation for the closure and the beginning of negotiations for the costs associated with the closure of that project. So that is one. The other project that suffered the closure and lack of attention was the Alutech project, which specifically also involved aluminium. But that project was to create a business in this country where we would have been exporting aluminium wheels for the motor car industry, a growth industry in the world. We had good electricity and good prices for electricity, and with aluminium ingots from our own smelter or bought from somebody else, we could have generated a business here in Wallerfield. And in fact, as I speak to you now, there's about $40 million of equipment rusting for the last 6 years in a warehouse somewhere in Trinidad that was supposed to generate that business. That too was shut down and forgotten. And of course, the E-Tech Park that was supposed to generate industries other than oil and gas and tomato and baigan, that E-Tech Park has also been abandoned. So when people tell us now about diversification, we know exactly how to take that. But you see, it wasn't only that. Last week, we opened the Brian Lara Stadium and Academy. And there were persons who took it upon themselves to do everything possible to ensure that that event was a failure. But today I want to congratulate all the persons who left their homes all over Trinidad and Tobago and came to the Brian Lara Academy to demonstrate that we are not all foolish in Trinidad and Tobago. And the reason that was given for the non-completion of that facility was that it would have cost first 180 million, then 200 million, then 250 million. And as a result of those estimates, it was viewed as feasible to abandon that facility. We have completed that facility within budget and within time for under $90 million. And notwithstanding its troubled history, today the world has seen the opening of the latest stadium in the cricket. And very soon, or sometime in the not too distant future, international games will be played there. And very, very soon, our youngsters and youngsters from the region and the world will come to that location, and just under the name Brian Lara, they will be happy to develop on their career that can do them more than most in Trinidad and Tobago. And I must mention something else too. We talk about sport tourism. We can have very little sport tourism in Trinidad and Tobago of any size, because we are a very small country with 1.3 million people. Any serious attempt to get involved in sport tourism, we're talking about external and the world outside. And when Brian Lara suggested that he wanted to use Sachin Tendulkar's name on that academy, it wasn't because, as our ridiculous friends say in the opposition, that we wanted to use Tendulkar's name to sanitize any project. But Brian Lara wanted to open to the world an academy where Brian Lara and Sachin Tendulkar would have been the showpiece in world cricket. And that academy is not just for us. And if it's going to be part of our sports tourism and our business, we are looking for business outside. And Sachin Tendulkar's association with it would have exposed us to the largest cricket market in the world in India. But in Trinidad and Tobago, that matters not. All that mattered was racial dotishness, because some people in this country cannot avoid including race in their discussion in every single thing that they do. And we heard the dog whistles and we heard the racial talk, but at the end of the day, the stadium is open. It's the Brian Lara Academy, and Gary Sobers told me on Friday night it's one of the best stadia in the region, needing no sanitization. But let me move on. So the Brian Lara Stadium has been completed by a government that came in and met an unfinished product. We've said very clearly we will not be pursuing any smelter, but we'll be looking for an opportunity in the aluminium business to do what we should have done in the beginning. So we'll have no smelter. But if we can buy ingots and restart the industry to make wheels and so on, we will do it. The cabinet is now considering a proposal put to us by an Italian company to do some aluminium business, and you'll hear more about that in the future if we succeed in attracting that attention. At the moment, the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Planning and Development and the Ministry of the Prime Minister's Office, we are discussing the Memorandum of Understanding, which might see us getting involved in some aluminium business here without a smelter. The Diego Martin Sports Complex, I'm pleased to announce to you now that there's a contractor on site. The foundation was finished before 2010. There's a contractor on site now about to pick it up from where it was left off 5 years ago. And the Diego Martin Sports Complex will be the next sporting facility that will be open in Trinidad and Tobago. We had the foundation for the Bagatelle Community Center. That foundation lied there for 5 years, untouched. I can announce to you this morning that there's a contractor on site completing the construction of the Bagatelle Community Center, and another one is in Mova, about to construct the Mova Community Center, all abandoned after 5 years. The Mova Community Center is in there, and of course, you hear about the Kuva Hospital. The reason given for blocking the highway and disturbing the traffic last Friday was that we should pay more attention to hospital and not the sporting complex. Well, we can do both. This government says we can do both. We can pay attention to both. So we completed the work on the Brian Lara Stadium, and as we said in the Parliament, we are determining how to integrate that Kuva Hospital into the National Health Delivery Plant. It was opened as a construction site sometime in 2015. And many of you believe that the hospital was complete and there was an opening. We told you that contractor remained on site as a contractor on a construction site until the middle of 2016. So what we have was an opening of a construction site, but the contractor didn't finish building the hospital until almost a year later. We have said, and we have invited proposals from all interested parties in that kind of business to see whether there's a proposal out there to operate that hospital in a way that will service Trinidad and Tobago, but do something different. That the investment would be used not just to supply services to us, but maybe a wider population and become an income earner within the health plant of Trinidad and Tobago. In the next few days, I'm advising by the Minister of Planning and Development that the team that we put together to evaluate the proposals would submit its report. That report will come to the Cabinet, and if we get a proposal that is satisfactory to the Cabinet, in the next few weeks, we will tell you exactly what the Cabinet has decided will happen with that hospital. But of course, we are not doing like a previous government, which is to ignore part-finished projects. And that is why we are here this morning. Because you see this highway, you would have heard from Mr. George that soon after, I think it was soon after we came into office, the contractor that was on this site abandoned the site and abandoned the workers. And let me remind you, I was on a platform here in San Fernando when the sod was turned in January of the year for this project, and by May nothing had happened because there was no proper financing arrangement in place for this project. And this project, which was awarded to the tune of $7 billion or thereabouts, had no significant financing in place for the project. The project was being financed out of the current account. As government gets money coming in on a Monday, they spend it on a Friday on this project. And the local contracting fraternity had said to the last government, do not give the whole route, the whole contract to one contractor. Break it up into pieces and allow local contractors to be able to tender. They deliberately did not give it to local contractors in pieces, but put the whole contract of $5 billion or $7 billion out, and no local contractor qualified to bid on a project of that size. This government is doing it differently. And that is why this morning we are awarding a contract to a local contractor for $175 million, something like that. 95 million, even better. 95 million, many local contractors could have bid on that project. And there are other pieces of the project where other local contractors will bid, and eventually we, with our local expertise, our local equipment, and our local financing, we will build this highway in Trinidad and Tobago as we could have done from the very beginning. We didn't have to go and hand it to a corrupt Brazilian contractor who went bankrupt halfway. And the bankruptcy was generated by arrests and jailings for corruption in Brazil. We have to assume that that didn't apply in Trinidad and Tobago. When they came to Trinidad and Tobago, they were the sons and daughters of Angel Gabriel. They didn't get corrupt in Trinidad and Tobago. But I'll tell you one thing. There's nothing that galls me more to hear those people who did that come to the parliament and is demanding all kinds of transparency from this government, demanding all kinds of accountability, but they would not acknowledge that the week of the general election, one of them made an arrangement and deleted from the contract the protection of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, removing from the contract the clause which said that the government could fire the contractor if the contractor becomes bankrupt. The last government did that. And I know there are people in this country who don't want to hear us talk about the last government, but we're going to talk about them every single day for the hurt that they have put on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And if the Integrity Commission was functioning, whoever did that would have had to account for it. Because there's no credible explanation where a contractor that was in trouble in the history of this project could have warranted a government taking out from the contract the clause that protected the people, that said if the contractor goes bankrupt, that is grounds for termination. What they expected to happen is that we could not have removed the contractor from the site. So all now OAS would have been here, running up claims, not doing the work, threatening the government, and you in Point Fortin never getting a highway. Well, I want to congratulate a member of my cabinet today, Minister Stuart Young, who brought his legal expertise to the cabinet. And along with NITCO staff, we terminated the contract using external legal help, making sure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's. And the first thing we did on termination is that we went after the bond, because the contract was bonded to the tune of almost $1 billion. And those who removed the clause from the contract so that the government couldn't terminate the contract, that is what they were protecting. That $1 billion of bond, they were protecting that. The government couldn't go after it. So we fired the contractor and we went after the bonds. The bonds were held by international banks in London and in Brazil and elsewhere. And as we expected, they fought tooth and nail to prevent the government of Trinidad and Tobago from claiming the money in the bonds. We went to court under Minister Young's guidance, and we won every single case, and we got back almost $1 billion. It didn't end there. They didn't stop there. Now that we have the money in our hands, they're going to fight again to prevent us from using the money to complete the project. I must announce this morning, we won that too. So we have legal authority to spend the money on the project now. And I tell you this, so that when my colleagues in the parliament get up and talking about this government, this and this government, that, and all kind of foolishness, you have the information, and I want you to ask them if they were the people who did what I just did. And I say to you again, we are getting on with the work in Trinidad and Tobago. We're not fighting the election yet. We're going to fight the election when the election comes. But anytime you want to elect people like that back into office, you're free to have them back. Because you cannot say you didn't know what they did when they were in office. You cannot say that. And that's why this government will tell you every single day what went on here. And that's why we have come back here now. Having won those battles, we come back here now to turn the sod, because this project is on to a new life, and Point Fortin will get its highway. Had we not fought those battles, when they come telling you, nothing going on in the government ain't doing nothing. You know how many nights and days we fought that battle to win in the court to get that money back? So if you did nothing right, you did that by giving us the authority to fight that fight when they were taking out the clause from the contract to prevent the contractor from being fired. In fact, the workers who were left without paying for money they had earned on work done, the Ministry of Works, from the same money we got back from the bonds, we've paid those workers. And as we open this job, we will create new opportunities for them. And this project for the next 2 years or thereabouts will provide hundreds of jobs to people. So all those who like the breadline talk, let me hear you now say that the breadline is shorter by hundreds of people who are now going to get jobs under this government, because we are doing what has to be done. What has to be done. And we are not going to do like the last government. And the examples I gave you of projects, important projects being abandoned, economic infrastructure at E-Tech, the aluminium smelter that they shut down, the sporting complex that they shut down, the Brian Lara Stadium where they teeth out everything that was not nailed down. In my own constituency, they allowed a handful of supporters to go away with all the steel, all the blocks, all the lumber, as though they would never come back and finish that project. That project is being finished today. At least it's costing us more, but at the end of the day, the project will be finished. And it is our intention to finish every single project, whether it's halfway, 3/4 way, or just started, to ensure that the intention to give the people of Trinidad and Tobago those facilities, or to create the economic foundation that they should have created, that this government will do that and not engage in attempting to spite anybody by not finishing what they started. And that is why today we are turning the sod to restart this project after a monumental battle which the people of Trinidad and Tobago would have won by standing up for what is right and what is good. But I want to say something as I thank the legal team and the engineering teams that are going to put us to Point Fortin. Contractors in Trinidad and Tobago, listen to me very carefully. I notice that the pricing excesses are still going on. The other day we asked for prices to do a swimming pool in Laventil. The price came in at $21 million. We asked for something else to be done somewhere else. The price came in millions above reason. I remember I was in the Manning cabinet when Mr. Manning had to justify why foreign contractors were playing such a big role in Trinidad and Tobago. And the justification was that local contractors had made a career and a culture of 1, overpricing projects, 2, not finishing them within budget, and 3, not finishing them within time. Against that background, the Manning administration invited and got a number of foreign contractors to come into this country at great aggravation to deliver what we claim we couldn't do for ourselves. I'm not going down that road yet. But first road I'm going down is the road of competition and opportunity for our local contractors. Our local contractors will be given the first opportunity on whatever we are doing in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why we've broken up this project into a number of packages so that as many local contractors can have an opportunity to bid. We are also not going to be selecting friends and family. It will be competition, so you have to put your best foot forward, compete to win. And contrary to what you have heard from some people, we've made no deal with no contracting firm in this country coming into office. We made one statement to all of them, whether they supported the PNM or not. And the statement was this, that everybody will be given a fair opportunity and a fair crack at what this country has to offer. So if you are a contractor who consistently bid high, then you'll get no work. If you are a contractor who bid competitively, you will win some bids. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you won't. But at the end of the day, we are going to give the local contractors the opportunity. And while we are giving that opportunity, we want the benefit of what you have. There are hundreds of pieces of equipment in this country lying idle. All of them bought by foreign exchange when we had foreign exchange. It is for contractors now to put those equipment to work in the most economical way in their bid. Because you no longer have to go and buy a new bulldozer or a new excavator. You have one in your yard already, and it must be cheaper to use that one than to go and buy a new one. And I want to see that in the bidding. Because I'm telling you now, we are able to evaluate the real costs of the projects we put out. And once the local pricing is ridiculous, we will not be stopped by it. If we cannot get the work done in a proper way, pricing and performance-wise, by local input, then we will use foreign input if foreign input will give us. Because the people of Trinidad and Tobago deserve better, and they deserve the best of our contracting fraternity. We know that we can do better. We know that we can get better prices. And the government is standing there to give local contractors the first and the best opportunity. So today, as we turn this out to restart this project, we anxiously look forward to its completion. And of course, the other packages. And we look forward to the day when we can get into a vehicle in Point Fortin and drive unimpeded to Port of Spain and further, and vice versa. Because our intention is to build the infrastructure so that that economic input will allow us to perform better as a nation. In the meantime, there are opportunities for jobs, opportunities for learning, and I dare say, opportunities for making a reasonable amount of money. So today I want to congratulate the people in NIDCO, people in the Ministry of Works, and all the agencies that worked with us, especially the legal department of the Attorney General's office, because this was a legal fight. And had we lost those battles, we would have lost the money and lost the opportunity which we are giving the workers here today. So thank you very much, and we look forward to good work, efficient work, and quality work on the way to Point Fortin.